Back with another episode of Civil Procedure. Where we left off was the types of personal jurisdiction. Worth mentioning, I didn't mention it before, but for the types of jurisdiction, you only need one of the four to satisfy personal jurisdiction, and that is important to note. Putting that out there. We're next going to get into personal jurisdiction, and we're going to define it through court cases. The necessary conditions of personal jurisdiction are going to be as such. This might be, I think this is accurate, it might be a little inaccurate, so feel free to correct me here. But generally speaking, as far as personal or specific jurisdiction goes, you need to satisfy the due process clause. And we're going to define what that is and how to satisfy that. You're then going to have to satisfy the international two minimum contacts. This is a big case. We'll talk a lot more about this later. And then you also need to satisfy the purposeful availment test. And that's going to be also talked about later. Secondly, is that this is being the broader thing. And so Goggin, in the realm of specific jurisdiction, right, the due process clause in this requirement is a really big net. And after you satisfy these conditions, you then have to ask yourself, well, then do I comply with the long arm statute, which is either the same kind of breadth, or sometimes they carve out a smaller long arm statute, smaller kind of net of what can be heard in a state. And so that might be kind of a little vague right now, but will soon be explained later. So for specific jurisdiction, we're going to define it through a lot of cases. And the first one we're going to go over is a case called Pennoyer v. Neff. And Pennoyer v. Neff is a case that, when I first heard it, really confused me. It's bad law right now, today. I think there is part of it that is still good law. But the story of it is kind of nuts. So, in Pennoyer v. Neff, 1878, this was in Oregon. Neff, the defendant in this case, he did something with a lawyer named Mitchell and owed Mitchell money. And then afterwards, Neff ran away. He ran away to California. Neff, trying to find him, trying to serve him, trying to sue him, publishes his service in a newspaper to say, Neff, you need to come back in so you can come to court to face your suit, this lawsuit. Neff never shows up. And at the time, that publication through the newspaper was enough in Oregon. And so the court grants default judgment and then takes Neff's old land and gives it to Mitchell, as because he failed to show up. Afterwards, Mitchell took the land and sold it through sheriff's deed to Pennoyer. Fun fact about Pennoyer is Pennoyer actually ends up being governor one day of Oregon, which I think is really funny. But Pennoyer then uses and owns the land for a long time. Then out of the blue, I think it was like 6 years later or something like that, Neff comes back and then says, well, this is actually my land. And Pennoyer says, that's weird because I thought it was my land. And so afterwards, I think the appellate court ruled for Neff. So Pennoyer brought it up to the Supreme Court, and we'll see what happens there.